Hello and welcome to another Tippling Philosopher video. Today I'm going to talk politics because I have to admit I am I wouldn't even say mildly, I am obsessed with American politics, more so than British politics. I find myself watching US cable news channels far more than I do the BBC, which is a bizarre situation to be in because it's fascinating and it has such implications for the rest of the world, especially when we seem to be kowtowing to the US here in the UK, especially given Brexit and how we'll be trying to do a trade deal with the US and trying to please them in every way possible. And so therefore the US becomes even more important to us, and it's just compulsive viewing. It's like some kind of horror show or some embarrassing TV show that you watch through your fingers. You can't tear yourself away from watching it, even though it's really uncomfortable to watch it. So that's how I feel about US politics, and I just wanted to talk today about Trump and what he's doing and why he's doing it. So the situation is that back in 2016-17, Trump had already been involved in something like 3,500 court cases. The guy is a magnet for attracting people wanting to sue him or to be involved in kind of legal fracas, and he hasn't changed that behaviour since being the president of the US. And as a result, we had the impeachment, but there's an awful lot of law breaking that has arguably happened as he's been in charge of the country. So here's the thing: if he is voted out, he will likely end up in court or be arrested. Okay, so being voted out for him isn't just a case of a politician losing an election. This is a kind of existential crisis for him. He has to win because otherwise there's a very good chance he'll go to prison. Now that changes things quite dramatically. And this, once you understand that, you then start understanding why for some time he's known this, and why at rallies he is calling for an extension to the 2-term limit. He is saying that US presidents can only rule the country for 2 terms. He is talking about 16 years and throwing these things out and seeing if it lands with his core support. And of course it does. They'd love him to run the country for 16 years. So, they're all like, yeah. And he's going, yep, that's what I want to do. And he's priming them with this idea that he can rule the country for almost until he dies, right? And the reason why is because if he's not ruling the country, he's in prison or he's in court. So it's massively, massively important. And then when you understand the polls have been so consistent, the most consistent polls in any US election in living memory, right? And they consistently show Biden leading. Biden is going to win the election, which means that Trump is going to only rule the country for 1 term and then end up in court. So what does he do? He looks at the polls, he knows, or his team knows, what's going to happen. So rather than putting together a really coherent campaign, he hasn't done that. When challenged, and he was softball interviewed by Fox twice, I think, where they said, okay, you haven't told us what you are campaigning on. Here's your chance to say what are you going to do in your 2nd term in office? What are you campaigning on? And he gave no answer. He had nothing. There is nothing of substance, of policy in Trump's campaign to be re-elected. So essentially, he's given up on winning the election on the basis of positive campaigning. And instead, he is relying on the core base that he has of maintaining as much support that got him elected in the first place, because he hasn't attracted any other voters in. In order to make sure he definitely gets voted in and re-elected, he needs to attract more people to vote for him than voted for him before, because he lost the popular election by over 2 million, 2.5%, I think it was, but 2 to 3 million votes. Hillary Clinton beat him by nationally, it's just that it was in the wrong places. So to ensure that he gets voted back in, he needs to attract more people to vote for him than he did originally. He's not going to do that, right? He has polarised the electorate so much that you either love him or hate him. And a growing number of people have ended up hating him. So he's lost some of those votes. He's down in the polls. And since he's got coronavirus, those polls have gone up to 14%. Some polls, A-rated polls, the NBC Wall Street Journal polls. So, but let's take an average of, say, 8%. He's losing the election. He is losing the election to Biden. Everyone that knows how to read polls and knows that they weren't inaccurate the last time, they just got it wrong in maybe 1 to 4 states, a little bit, but they broadly were accurate with how they predicted the national electorate behaviour. So he's going to lose the election. What does he do? Well, he's got several options. He lies and cheats his way to winning. So cheating his way, which is, closing down ballot stations, voter suppression, gerrymandering, all the things that the Republicans are very good at, he's been doing, or the Republicans have been doing to ensure that he could, or to try and get him re-elected by cheating. Okay? So he's doing that. He's calling into disrepute, I suppose, all the democratic mechanisms and values of the American democratic system. So he's spouting a load of effectively propagandistic lies about mail-in voting, so that his core support, at least, are primed. They're being primed that there is fraud in the system, even though there isn't. They're being told that the Democrats can't get in because of, and he's putting fear into them, so they're thinking, right, some of his more vehement supporters are talking about civil war, raising arms against Democrats being in charge, but it's really about casting aspersions on the voting system. And while he's doing that, the reason why he wanted to rush through getting the Supreme Court nominee nominated, Amy Barrett, is because A, she's a conservative and completely on his side, kind of a lackey for him. And B, if he's going to challenge the result in court, he needs the Supreme Court to be balanced in his favour. And if there's going to be 6 conservatives to 3 liberals on the Supreme Court, then he's got a great chance of challenging the result of the election. So if he loses the election, which he will do based on the votes that will be cast, his only option is to, well, first of all, to try and cheat his way to winning, and if he can't do that, then to cast so many aspersions on the democratic mechanisms that he feels he has a right to challenge it in court, and by challenging it in court, he's already primed his electorate that the mechanisms are fraudulent and dodgy, so that they will support him in challenging it in court, and he can successfully challenge it in court because he stacked the court in his favour by rushing through a third nomination in his first term, hopefully his only term. But so this idea that Trump has an existential crisis is massively important for understanding what he's doing now and what his actions are. He is not looking to win the election fair and square. I think his team have probably given up on that. It's about putting money, because he's not getting enough money to run a successful campaign. So he's not raising enough compared to Biden's. He's running out of money, having to put his own money in, but we know from his tax returns he hasn't got much money. So he'll be applying that into certain key areas. For example, if he loses Texas and he loses Florida, it's all over for him. It's not the case for Biden on the other side, but if Trump loses Florida or Texas, game over. So there will be certain states where he is putting all his eggs into those baskets. But that's not going to work. So it is all about propaganda against the system, the electoral system, so that he can challenge it in court, because he has everything to lose, and by that I mean his freedom. You know, he has no other option as far as he can see it, which is why he's doing what he's doing. Anyway, I thought I'd discuss that, and tell me if you agree or disagree. Put your comments down below. Please subscribe to my channel and buy any merchandise from down below, and certainly buy some of my books. Help me. Anyway, thanks for listening.